Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It is exactly 7 after 8 o'clock, and we now welcome to the program our first guest. That's you, Trevor Shaku, South African Federation of Trade Unions spokesperson. A very good morning to you. Welcome. And of course, we start with this bombshell. Perhaps it shouldn't come as a bombshell because we all along as South Africans suspected that there was large scale sabotage happening at Eskom. But finally, we are told that an Eskom executive with top security clearance is a person of interest to the police for alleged involvement in targeted sabotage at power stations. And this, of course, has been done in collusion with a whole host of other people, and it has been done for their own personal gain. What do you make of it?
Yeah, and good morning, and thanks for having us. The issue indeed does not necessarily shock us, especially because there have been countless media reports since 2017, 2016 about problems that go on at the power stations with Eskom generally. And what we would have seen is that a lot of acts of sabotage, including the change of people swapping higher grade coal, which is meant to go to Eskom power stations for lower grade. People who also would swap coal with rocks. I think last year around November, they would have reported that a truck loaded with rocks went into Eskom power stations. People who within Eskom itself, and I suspect part of that, some of the syndicates which have been exposed by this article, who were cutting pipes, supplying necessary oils to some of the units in the power stations, but also just sheer stealing of diesel has been part of the activities of these seemingly criminal activities, or rather criminal cartels which are operating at that particular at these particular stations, ensuring that they profiteer out of the crisis that has engulfed that entity. So we, as the South African Federation of Trade Unions, welcomed the information and the fact that what has been reported is that both the security cluster, the state security, and the South African Police Service are in possession of this particular information and are in the process of trying to get clearance so that they can be able to arrest the culprit. What is more worrying is that the culprit seems to have recruited to his fold a number of people who are working with him. And some of these people are workers at Eskom, because it is reported that there are engineers and artisans who are working with them. But even more worrying is those who are contracted to do forensic auditing, because it seems that the conversation published by the City Press shows a communication between the co-conspirator, who is a forensic audit worker, and this Eskom executive. It means that the thing is rotten to the core. Both those contracted and those within Eskom are in cahoots to try to milk that entity by creating sabotages, by creating crisis which is not even there, so that they can be able to profit out of it.
This report definitely vindicates Andre de Ruyter, does it not? I mean, we had top government officials baying for his blood, and here we finally get evidence that this is in fact happening. So our suspicions have, and Andre de Ruyter's suspicions have been actually correct. Having said that, I'm kind of wondering, or is it a situation of not guilty until proven so in a court of law? Why are we not naming and shaming these people? Because this is what needs to happen at this point in time, because they have almost crippled the country. We are on our knees due to the sabotage at Eskom.
I agree. I think the main thing is that as soon as the arrest is effected, what they should do is to indeed come forward with the names of this individual and all other individuals who are linked to him. One, to not just shame them, but also to strike fear into a number of those other networks, because I do not believe that this will be the only network that is criminally operating to sabotage Eskom power stations so that they can profit. I think that there might be a number of webs which are operating there, and as a result, you are going to have to strike fear into those hearts of those other criminals by ensuring that you name them, but also begin a process not just of naming and shaming, but begin a process of ensuring that these people account through our law enforcement systems. And for us, that can only mean a speedy investigation of this particular process, prosecution, and successful convictions. And it is only successful convictions, in our view, that would begin a process of ensuring that these people pay back what they would have inflicted on the country. Because what they are doing there is to inflict a serious blow on the whole of the society in the country, because we are suffering during load shed. If indeed and of course, if they are sabotaging some of the power stations, indeed some these activities contribute to exacerbated load shedding, and as a result, workers have suffered from load shedding by losing their jobs, because certain companies cannot operate within the ordinary operating costs, and as a result, they've got to procure extra alternative ways of ensuring that they power their companies and enterprises. And as a result, they have actually uh, 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 made workers to suffer in order to ensure that, as a result of recouping the increased operating cost of their companies, they lay off some of the workers. In other
Absolutely.
instances, they would have told workers to not come to work for certain hours during, especially the load shedding hours. And as a result, that has an effect on the payment that is eventually given to workers. In our communities, we have been told that burglaries increase, especially during load shedding, because criminals take advantage of the dark cover during load shedding. And this is not just for households, but also for small businesses who do not have proper security to guard their property. So these people's actions have inflicted serious pain across the country, and it would be very prudent for for the nation to get reprieve by ensuring that these people, through law enforcement, get the full sentences which they have to deserve. They in our view, they deserve. But secondly, they have to, because they are monetarily benefiting out of this particular sabotages. We've got to attach their assets after this, not just throw them into prison, but have to attach their assets and the assets of those companies linked with the benefiting from the sabotaged power stations, forensic auditing teams, and companies that are contracted after these sabotages are effected at this power station. So we're going to have to begin, of course, with the naming and shaming, but proceed to uh, effectively and successfully investigating and prosecuting and convicting them. And lastly, of course, sending them to prison and ensuring that their assets are attached to recoup
They
all
should
the
be.
cents and the rents we have lost.
My thinking, Trevor, and uh, I, I, I really, my blood boils when I come across situations like this, because all of the shenanigans that has been happening at Eskom has created such a lot of unemployment. It's just created disaster for the country, and I should imagine Eskom is a key point in the country, like our airports and other such entities. These people should be charged with treason, nothing less than treason, because it's created large scale employment. It's created unemployment, I beg your pardon. It's created a rise in crime, and crimes at unprecedented levels. We've never seen crime like this in the past. It's created our entire country to malfunction. So they should be charged with treason over and above of being named and shamed. And in this report that SAFTU has released, obviously you're talking about one particular senior a government official. Let's just have a look. An Eskom executive. Undoubtedly, there are very many, many more. Where and how do we move forward on this situation? Because obviously, Zwelinzima Vavi has also said that this is the biggest, ANC is the biggest sabotage and the biggest threat to us in the country. Obviously, this is the way the rest of us see it as well, because they're crippling the country by all of their shenanigans.
Absolutely. This is treasonous. And we think, as SAFTU, that the blame should, of course, lie with these cartels, with these groups of people, including this Eskom executive who's operating from within to have a group of a group of engineers and artisans working for him. Now, in as far as ANC is concerned, we think that they are the biggest culprit in sabotaging Eskom for two reasons. The first one is historical, that in the first place, we find ourselves in this crisis because they failed. In fact, they did not fail, they refused. They refused to accede to the calls by Eskom leadership in the late 1990s to add new generation capacity. And their failure to do, their refusal to do so was premised on the aspiration to try to bring in the independent power producers who were supposed to come and liberalize, because this was part of liberalizing the energy provision in the country. These independent power producers were supposed to come and be part of the the ambition to try to create competition in the energy generation. Of course, those did not come to fruition because international investors in particular felt that the South African energy market was not profitable because comparative to the international electricity tariffs, South Africa had low and lowest electricity tariffs. So they did not invest in that. So that for us was the first sabotage which was inflicted on Eskom by the African National Congress. And because of that delay, we started experiencing load shedding in 2007. And since then, they've had to try to hurry to add extra generation capacity to Eskom, and they approved the building of Medupi and Kusile, which as a result of corruption again have been mismanaged, and to the point that there are cost overruns that went beyond the budgeted amount to build the two power stations. In addition to this, you today have them where, because Eskom, if its coal power fleet is not operational and some of its units are uh, out of the system because they are being repaired and all of that, Eskom try by all means to include to use diesel to meet the demand at that particular time. So, and this is what they've been resorting in the past, resorting to burning diesel. Now, some of these criminal cartels actually are using this kind of sabotages to try to ensure that the coal fleet is not working, so that continuously Eskom will be in need of having to burn diesel. Then that's where they profit again, beyond the forensic auditing fees, which they charge Eskom at exorbitant prices. What they also do is to try to ensure that they tender for the contracts of supplying diesel to Eskom at very inflated prices again. But also, it has been reported that they've been stealing the same diesel. They steal it, come back and sell it back, steal it, come back and sell it back. So you'd find that a person would have delivered uh, uh, 5 times liters or loads of diesel, but in actual fact, what has been realized there is just one load. And in our view, so the ANC has created a condition in which the criminal cartels find it very conducive to be able to operate. And this is the problem. So they underwrite the current criminals who are currently sabotaging, but at the same time, historically, they've been the ones who have sabotaged Eskom from operating properly and optimally.
Absolutely rotten to the core. Unbelievable what's happening. And very, very sadly, Trevor, it's always and always will be the poorest of the poor that are suffering. And I have no doubt in my mind that SAFTU is going to keep a very, very keen eye on the developments of this particular story, simply because we do want to ensure that the criminals are brought to book. And I think that that circle is far, far, far wider than we actually imagine, and they're going to be big names toppling as well. And I hope and pray that it does happen sooner rather than later. Trevor Shaku, the South African Federation of Trade Unions spokesperson, talking to us about the Eskom executive allegedly sabotaging power stations for profit. And of course, it's not one person alone. There's a huge, huge cartel involved here. We will be following the story as the rest of the nation. And I should imagine globally, people have got their eyes on this particular story, because it's really about the future of South Africa and our future generations. So thank you indeed, Trevor Shaku, for being with us on the show this morning.
Thank you, Julian. Thanks for having us.
It is exactly 8:23 news and views on Salam Media. Next, we're going to cross over to Palestine. We will be talking to a journalist there, and that, of course, is Bilal Al-Tamimi, about the recent atrocities on the Palestinian people.